Hi, welcome to the Guitar Department. My name is Joe Alton and I'm your host. On this episode, we're going to be talking about finger picking. I'll give you some finger picking exercises. We're going to have a look at the song Say You Won't Let Go by James Arthur. And then we're going to check out the tone zone a little bit. We've got some special pieces of equipment, a new amp, a new pedal. It's going to be a good episode. Welcome to the Guitar Department. Now, before we look at our song this week, we're going to take a look at a few finger picking exercises, and I want to go through just a few basics of what finger picking actually is. Finger picking, as the name implies, is when you pick the strings with your fingers instead of using a pick. We have a pick here for lead stuff and for strumming. For finger picking, what we do usually is use these three fingers, your thumb, pointer, and middle finger. And for a lot of the folk style songs that you hear on the radio, you'll just use those three. And that sort of carries through a lot of different patterns that you'll end up using. It is possible, however, to use the third finger, the ring finger also. And we're going to talk for a second about the system of labeling those fingers just so that you recognize it when you see it. We're going to start out with these three fingers and the thumb, the pointer on the G string, or the third string from the bottom, the middle finger on the B string, the second string from the bottom, and the ring finger on the first string, the low or the high E string, excuse me. And then our thumb, in this case, is going to just play the top string, although it can change for whatever chord you might be playing underneath this. And our first basic pattern is just thumb, index, middle, ring, middle, index, and then back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Thumb, pointer, middle, ring, middle, pointer, thumb. Now, some of you might recognize that as the very beginning of the song Nothing Else Matters by Metallica. So that song obviously has a lot more complicated stuff going on after that initial opening, but that first little measure, that first section, it happens 4 times in a row before anything else happens. It's a great way to work up the independence on your fingers, and you don't just have to use the open strings. It happens that if you start on those 3 strings and your thumb on the top string, you play effectively an E minor chord, because if you fingered an E minor chord, your 2 fingers would go on the strings that we're not actually playing. So you can play it as just an open chord, with or without the fingers. However, you can actually play whatever chord you want. If you were to finger an A minor chord, for instance, you just bring your thumb down a string so that it's on the lowest note of the chord that you're playing. Keep the other 3 right where they are. And you can carry any progression you want that way. You might notice there on the G, I just moved these 3 fingers, the pointer, middle, and ring finger, up a string to get a slightly different set of notes that are still in the chord. And that is an option. That's something you can always try. But the same pattern, thumb, pointer, middle, ring, middle, pointer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 gets you that sound. When you practice it slow. Try to be deliberate and try to make every note ring out at the same volume if you can. The second pattern I want to show you is a little bit closer to that Dust in the Wind pattern. I actually stole it from The Boxer by Simon and Garfunkel. He uses an alternated bass line, but for the sake of this exercise, we're just going to play the chord as it actually appears normally. So what we're going to do for this one, we're going to drop the ring finger and just focus on the thumb, pointer, and middle finger. And we're going to go thumb on the 5th string, the A string, and then middle finger on the second string, then thumb again on the fourth string, and then pointer on the third string. So fifth, second, fourth, third, fifth, second, fourth, third. This one's usually used as an eighth note, so 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. What I did there is I changed the chord from a C to a G over B and then to an A minor, which is actually used in both Dust in the Wind and The Boxer by Simon and Garfunkel. But again, this is just a generic exercise. What you want to do is start off slow and then slowly build up steam with it. Build up as much speed as you feel is necessary. You don't have to play it as fast as you can, but just like that. And again, if you do decide to play it faster, you get a slightly different sound out of that. It makes it sound like you're playing something really fast, even though neither one of your hands are actually moving that much. So, but again, take it slow, start off nice and steady, and try to work yourself up to whatever tempo you actually want to be able to play it at. Now, there's one more exercise I want to give you, and the world of finger picking goes on and on and on, so feel free to look up your own exercises and learn as many songs with finger picking as you can to try and build up your finger picking chops. But here's another really common one, and that is to just play with your thumb and then use these three fingers together. So, what I did there was alternated between the thumb and these three fingers. And you can, when you have a chord that covers 4 strings or 5 or 6 strings, you can adjust those fingers to play whichever of the 4 strings in the chord you want. So on the C, we have 5 strings to choose from. I have my thumb, again, on the lowest note of the chord, and then these 3 are on the highest 3 strings. But I could easily move those up a string and carry just the middle 4 strings, which works a little better for certain harmonies. If you're going to do what's called a G over B to an A minor, sometimes that sounds a little better just on those middle 3 strings. If you've heard the song Hey There Delilah, that uses this pattern. He only uses 2 fingers when he plays it, though. He doesn't use the ring finger. He just sticks to those bottom 2. So, really common patterns, and finger picking is a very interesting technique that is, when it's used properly, sounds really cool. So make sure you try it out. Try as many different patterns as you can. And those are our finger picking exercises. The song Say You Won't Let Go by James Arthur is played in a finger picking style, sort of similar to that last exercise that we did, but it has a little added element to it. And the first thing we need is a capo. The chords we're going to be working with are G, D, E minor, and C. The way he plays this song, he fingers the G chord, specifically the top string with the 3 and then the ring finger with the 3 on the 2nd string. So we've got the 6th string and the 2nd string held down on the 3rd fret, and you can finger the rest of the chord too if you'd like. But with finger picking, since you're only hitting specific strings, you don't necessarily have to. I will be, just because it's easier for me to demonstrate the chords we're using when playing the song. But feel free to play it however is best for you. So here's the first measure. So what I did there is I started with just my thumb, and then I hit these 2 strings together, and then there's a cold stop with a little slap on the string. And that technique, just like that, is done with just by hitting your thumb on the top string. The actual sound that you hear is the sound of the string hitting the frets. So it works better if your guitar has a little bit lower action. And then from there, we sort of stop the rest of the strings while we're doing the thumb hit. You can see the rest of my hand comes down on those strings to mute them at the same time. So everything dies at the same time. And then the ring finger comes off, and we hit those 3 strings together. The thumb on the 6th string, 3rd string with the pointer, and 2nd string with the middle. And then we go thumb, pointer, thumb. Then we switch the chord. The next chord is D, and we're going to do the exact same exact same finger picking pattern, except our thumb is going to come down to the lowest note of the D chord, which is the D string. So again, it's thumb and then pointer on the 2nd and 3rd strings, slap, and this time I'm hitting the string that I'm playing. It doesn't actually matter which string you hit as long as they all get muted, but I've moved my thumb down so that I'm hitting the 5th and 4th strings there. Then we go to E minor. Now for the E minor, again, we're going to go back to the top string with our thumb, finger the E minor as normal, and then put your ring finger or pinky, whichever you'd prefer, on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string from the bottom. And then the last chord in the song is a C. Now the ending of this measure is different. You're going to hit the thumb and then pluck the 2nd string with your middle finger and pull off the pointer finger to a 0. And that sort of creates a tonality of it being a G major, a C major 7. Now, if you find yourself not able to do that slap, what you might do instead is just mute the string, like that. Personally, I like the slap in there. It makes for a nice percussive element, and it works with other songs too, like More Than Words by Extreme, More Than Words by Extreme, and a handful of other songs. But getting that slap in there is kind of a cool technique, and it's really exclusive to finger picking with the thumb. And that's the song Say You Won't Let Go by James Arthur. And now it's time for our lick of the week. And for this one, I've decided to go with one of the first finger picking licks that I ever learned. And it's something I sort of stumbled across myself. It works best over an E minor chord or possibly a G chord. But it's an alternation between your thumb and pointer finger on the 2nd and first string. So your thumb will play the second string, and your pointer will play the first string. And you'll just alternate between those two. And it's one of those exercises that's pretty simple, but it's easy to build up speed on. And while you're doing that, we're going to play what's called a single string scale. We're going to play the notes of an E minor scale with that B alternating underneath it. That was actually an E Dorian scale. So there's our E minor scale. Now the actual lick we're going to play runs up and down that scale just a little bit. It'll sound like this. Let me do that one more time. Now, what I did there is I ran up the scale, 0, 2, 3, 5, 7, and then back down, 5, 3, and then back to 5, and then up to 7, 8, and then the last three notes, normally you would just go 10, 12, but I wanted to add that extra tonality into it. So you add sort of a leading tone seventh. And that not only adds a little bit of extra tonality, an extra note to the scale, but it also adds an extra beat to the lick so that it doesn't end in an awkward place. It sort of divides itself up by the rhythm of a standard 4/4 measure. But of course, the idea is you can play with that minor scale however you'd like. And that's our lick of the week, the alternation between the B and E strings with an E minor scale on the bottom string. So at this time, I want to take a look at this guitar that I've been playing this whole episode. It is the Yamaha Transacoustic series, and it has something really cool about it. Now, first of all, it's a pretty nice looking acoustic guitar. It's also got an electric pickup put in it, so you could plug it into an amp. But what's really cool about it is this little workstation here, and it's got a button on the line out volume, and if I press that and hold it down, that activates the internal effects. So I don't know how well you can hear that, but it's actually got a reverb effect built into it. You can hear if I stop that chord, it just has a spring echo built into it. If I turn that back off, it just has its natural room reverb and it dies out pretty quick. If I turn it back on, now we've got a little bit more of an effect to it. You can really hear that when you stop the chord. It just keeps ringing for an extra second or so. Internally, it's got the effects built in. Now again, I am not plugged into an amplifier, and there are no electronics at play here. They're just built into the guitar passively. And that really comes in handy when you're soloing acoustically. But there's one more. If I turn this knob up a little bit, now we've got a chorus effect also. And we talked about chorus the other week, and it's just got a bit of a modulation. It actually adjusts the pitch upward and downward while keeping the original pitch intact, which of course it's an acoustic guitar, so it's got a flatline pitch and the modulated pitch at the same time. It just adds a little bit more depth to the sound. We have two different kinds of effects. There's reverb there's two different kinds of reverb. We have a hall effect and a room effect. I've had it set to the hall effect for this episode just because it demonstrates a little bit more clearly. But here's the room effect turned up all the way. You can hear it dies out a little bit quicker than the hall effect does. Turn it back to the hall effect. That one rings out for just a little bit longer. The room effect dies out just a little bit quicker. And that's the Yamaha Trans Acoustic Series acoustic guitar. And now it's time for us to enter the tone zone. And to start this week, you might have noticed I have a new amplifier sitting next to me. Now what you can see on the front is that it says Fender Twin Reverb Amp, but what you might not have noticed is that on top we have a little label here that tells us that it's a Tone Master Series Twin Reverb Amp. And what Fender has done here has taken their classic Twin Reverb amp and turned it into a solid state amp. Now the Twin Reverb is a heavy tube amp. It's a really great sounding amp. This one sounds exactly the same. But it only weighs 33 pounds. You can lift it with one arm pretty easily. It's great for hauling in and out, and it's their brand new line of amplifiers, the solid state amplifiers with the special speakers and the new technology inside. Really made it sound amazing, and Fender is doing some amazing things with the Tone Master series. And I have a feeling you'll see other amplifier companies doing the same here pretty soon too, but this thing just sounds amazing. All right, and now it's time for our pedal of the week. And this week, we've got the Boss DD3T, the digital delay pedal. Now, there's a lot of Boss digital delay pedals out there. The DD3 is pretty fun because it has not only does it have a tap tempo on it, but it has a little dial here on the far right to adjust the timing of the loop, of the repeat that you're trying to set. So you don't have to rely on just one twist of a dial to get from 0 all the way to the maxed out timing of it. We have 800 milliseconds worth of repeat, and that gets us pretty far. Let me click it on. Now a delay pedal takes your original signal and just repeats it. It just slaps it back to you. And you can hear that fade out. It's got like a feedback effect that lets you control how quickly or slowly it fades out. And there are a lot of different ways to use a delay pedal. There's no way we could cover every single trick in the delay book in one episode. But to start with, so, a little Pink Floyd trick there with that little slap back coming back on what they call a dotted eighth note rhythm. One, so it's 1, 2, and bump, don, 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 don. So our tempo would be 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it comes back up on that second eighth note, or what you would call the and of 2, musically speaking. But now we're going to shorten our timing a little bit. I'm going to switch it from 800 milliseconds to 200 milliseconds. And what that does, it just acts like a doubler. Let me turn that up just a hair more. Now what that sounds like is, it's almost as though the master of your guitar track has been recorded and then doubled and offset by just a split second, and in fact under 200 milliseconds to be exact. It gets you sort of the effect that you might find on, say, a Randy Rhoads recording or any number of recordings using guitar solos. Specifically the solo part of it. It really helps the solo pop. If I turn it up even more, we'll max that one out. And there we go. You can actually start to hear it bop, 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 fade out a little bit more. Has sort of a psychedelic effect almost. It almost sounds like you're playing in a hall, like a Wells Fargo arena where it's slapping back off of the walls at you. And you can do a lot with that too. I'm going to hit the distortion at this point. You can just hear that cascade of sounds. If I turn that distortion off, it creates sort of a really cool sound there. And again, we're only at half time on this setting, so let's go up all the way just to demonstrate how it maxes out. That's a really long delay there. That's 800 milliseconds, almost a full second. And that's our pedal of the week, the Boss DD3T. Well, thank you for joining us here on the Guitar Department. I'm your host, Joe Alton. I want to thank our producer, Bryce, our cameraman, Jason. I want to thank Riemann Music for providing our pedal of the week, this beautiful Fender Players Series Stratocaster, the Yamaha Transacoustic guitar, and the Fender Tone Master amp, all of this cool equipment. Thank you to Riemann's for that, as well as for giving us a place to shoot our episode. Please join us on Facebook at facebook.com/The Guitar Department, and be sure to join us next week right here on The Guitar Department.